You are listening to Robert Avila, Christian Watchman, on the Steel Sharpens Steel podcast on Podomatic.com and other platforms, including YouTube, No Jesus, No Peace. This is a series of 9 prophetic visions, some short, pertinent to the United States Navy. These are things that will help prepare you and give you some idea of what's going to be happening in the future. Please go and watch a previous podcast titled Warnings for the U.S. Army or Warnings for the U.S. Air Force. The first 2 of those are relevant to the Navy. Now, so in that first one that you will see there is that there is an initial attack, a comprehensive attack. I believe this will be Russia, perhaps supported or encouraged by China, as well as other nations. And in that attack, when the roll call is called, the Navy does not report. And the interpretation is that the U.S. Navy is dead. Another dream, second vision here, a reporting crew goes to Europe and finds Americans who had survived this great war and interviews them for a television documentary. And they interview these silver-haired men, these white-haired men, and they talk about how after the initial attack, they went out and they found other ships. They refitted them. They found parts. They came together. They built crews. They trained young men. And they went to sea. These old veterans, these old men, retirees, and they made a replacement Navy. And that Navy was effective. It served a purpose. It was relevant in the coming counter-revolution that would one day set the United States free from the forces that occupied her. Some calling themselves peacekeepers, others clear as day invasion forces. Next, I see fighting in Vietnam. In this war, there's some Americans going there. They're confident that they're going to have the victories that America has enjoyed in the past, but that's not how it goes. There's a beachhead. The men are overwhelmed by an invader. But before that happens, there's a Navy ship that brought them. It needs some repairs, and it needs resupply. And the ship that comes to provide repair components, resupply of other materials, is a ship comprised of 100% women. It's an all-female ship. And the men on the shore, they're kind of interested in meeting some of the women, but it doesn't happen for them. And then later, there's an attack, a battle that goes on, and a bridge is destroyed over a large river, and when it collapses, the falling metalwork and asphalt topping, whatever, the bridge components, land on and trap an American submarine. That just seems like the sloppiest of logistics. So be aware. Attacks need to be coordinated somehow. It just seemed to me like if the submarine had known that bridge was coming down, they wouldn't have been so close. And if the people who took down the bridge knew the submarine was that close, they wouldn't have taken it down then. So it just seems like there needs to be more coordination. Dream number 4, storms will increase. The weather in the world will not be consistent with statistical history. And I've seen a great storm, and there's a young woman officer. She's interviewed, and she says, yeah, the winds came, they tore everything, the large equipment and stuff held, their fixtures held them in place, but some smaller things were ripped away and lost. They weren't mission critical items, but things were ripped off of the ship. So this is like something serious, so it's something to be aware of, prepared for. So storms will increase, so that you may need to prepare your men to avoid seasickness, how to batten things down, tables, chairs, items, whatever. If that's what's happening on the surface of the ship, what's happening inside the ship, especially in the hull, down where the jar heads are berthed, it could be a different effect. Number 5, after the initial attack and as the war progresses, many different types of vessels will be pressed into service. In this particular dream, I saw something that looked like it was almost a ferry boat, and it had a curious curvilinear outlines, to its main body. I don't know what kind of a ship it was, but it had been seized by the government and pressed into service for the Navy, and it was ferrying troops and sailors and whatnot. So this means that the sailors will need to be more diverse in their training. So maybe you're trained on a diesel engine, a nuclear engine, or a certain type of radar systems or sound systems. But it would behoove you, even if the Navy doesn't encourage you to do so, to learn more about other types of communication systems just on your own as a hobby. Take up shortwave radio, take up installing sound systems, how things work, right? Because this is the kind of stuff that sailors will be forced to do. And the better you are at it, the more effective you will be when the time comes. Number 6, this dream I don't totally understand, but I'm just going to share it. I saw that all sailors were being taught military strategy, how to think militarily strategically, and not just through chess. They had other games. I saw they were playing some game that they had colored soldiers. Some were all blue, all green, just like a board game you might buy in a game store, in a box board set. And they were playing these games, but it was teaching strategy. You know, the Russians have been doing this in their society. There's a game it's called Mafia, and one person are the mafia killers, the other people are the police force, and there's certain rules, and you have to try and the goal is to deceive the sheriff and the deputies in order to survive until the end and kill off all the good guys, right? So and this is intentional. The Russian government created this game in order to teach Russians how to lie, so that when war came and they were pressed into service, they would already have this skill. All right, so if you ever talk to somebody in intelligence, especially someone who's a specialist in Russian language, Russian intel operations, they will tell you that the Russians are an enigma trapped inside a quandary. Like, there's just levels of deception that they're always playing. So be aware of that when dealing with the Russian Navy. Number 7, this is interesting. The Navy developed some kind of a machine that produced moisture, put moisture into the air, and somehow the radar systems that the Chinese use and have on their ships, this moisture in the air confounds their radar. It thwarts their radar systems for some reason, and this is a benefit to the American Navy. And I see a dream in which a vision in which there's a contest between an American destroyer and a Chinese destroyer. The American destroyer wins, and when they start looking for this American destroyer, they're able to slip out of Chinese search capabilities because of this moisture machine. That may make more sense to somebody who's a specialist in radar and detection. To me, I'm just reporting what the Holy Spirit showed me. Okay, now, at some point, I don't know if this is in the near future or the far future, but there is, and this is one of those things that's a potential future. It depends on certain things happening. But there will be something like a new type of technology, and it comes in like little plates. I think they might be hexagonal rather than square, and they're attached to the outside of vessels. And somehow this makes a ship go faster with less fuel. And eventually, over the long term, all ships become outfitted with this type of tiles. So it's a big deal. So look for that if you see it and people are talking about it. If we can innovate that before and faster than the enemy, that will definitely give us an advantage. Last vision here, number 9. I've seen that people are blessed. And these are, in the dream I saw, there were engineers. There was a think tank that was put together to look at certain problems. And there was one man, he was a Christian man, he prayed, and he kept giving these, God would show him things, and he would innovate things that would be of great benefit to the Navy. So again, this is about honoring God, putting God first, and recognizing that not everybody is blessed, and that those who put God first, they are blessed. And he did things like he found out an optimal pitch for the slope at the end of an aircraft carrier, that you had to put a pitch up. And then when I had this dream, they were not making aircraft carriers with this. Now they do, but this guy figured out like the perfect pitch so that you could put an angled ramp at the end of an aircraft carrier, and this facilitated the takeoff and the landing somehow. Like he had figured this out, and he was doing other things as well. So it's about putting your trust in God. God can show you a vision. He can show you where the enemy is, what the enemy is plotting. He can do anything. So put God first, pray, put more respect in people that know God and can hear the voice of God. But always pray, put God first, honor God. The trials that are going to come upon this world, they are because of the wickedness in the hearts of men, because people have refused to put truth in the first place, to honor life, to honor other people, to respect people's rights. People want to believe every kind of a lie and force it on others. And this evil, when good is called bad and bad is called good, this is a wickedness, and it brings wickedness with it. If you sin, evil waits at the door. That's the first murder in the Bible resulted from someone refusing to honor what God wanted, just to give God what is his due. So we need to put God first, and you'll start seeing victories. You can be on a Navy ship and pray. You can be anywhere and pray. You can start praying now to prepare for what is coming in the future. This is Robert Avila, also known as No Jesus, No Peace on different platforms, and as the man from Modesto in some places, reminding you as always to pray or be defeated.